Plugin of the week is the Kush Audio O'Mega Transformer plugins. These are two transformer plugins that are harmonic distortion plugins. They're really cool. They're very simple. One is the O'Mega Model A is an API emulation, and the Model N is a Neve emulation. And A transformer is used for a lot of purposes in electronics. Mostly it's used to decouple things. It's used to match or balance impedance mismatches. It's used to isolate components from each other where there may be some impedance mismatches or issues. It converts things like direct current into alternating current or vice versa. So transformers are a very powerful part of electronics, and in audio, they have many purposes. Some of which, most of which, is impedance matching, and also they have sonic characteristics, which are kind of cool. Generally, transformers on their own, historically from the earliest phases, would affect the audio by giving it a warming quality. They would be less efficient at higher frequencies. But as people experimented and worked with them and made them better, higher quality, they started to become more accurate across the frequency spectrum. Still, there's a harmonic distortion aspect that comes out of them. And when you drive a signal into a transformer, it will exhibit certain distortion characteristics that will bring out harmonics at different stages along the way, and it will drive audio signals in different ways that can actually be pleasing. When you use a component that has a transformer, generally it will add a warming quality. Some people say that it focuses more low end. I hear a little bit more of a low mid density imaging that are like it solidifies low mid range energy. But when you overdrive a transformer, it will start to move its way or wind its way up the harmonic series and kind of drive and give you different characteristics. So I'm going to go over here the two basic versions. So I'm going to start with the Model A here. And I'm going to start with something that is usually the easiest to hear it on. I'm just going to start with a simple bass sound because what I find is that gives you will usually give you like a very good sense of what it does, and where I find transformers are most powerful and really amazing are on things like bass, on guitars, on vocals, on anything where you want a warm, rich sound and character. And so with this, we can drive it, give it a little bit more edge, but I'll show you what this is. So now it's never exactly, easy or accurate to know exactly what's going on in terms of the exact models, because if you go Neve, which exact Neve component was modeled, I'm assuming it's probably the Marinair transformer, and I'm assuming that on the O'Mega Model A on the API emulation, that it is the API 2503 transformer, which is an output transformer. So when we're driving the signal, an interesting aspect of working with a lot of electronic components, like if you're using, say, for example, a 1073, what is interesting is that most people tend to do additive equalization when they're working with a 1073 or some of the Neve EQs from the 70s, and in a similar way with the APIs. And so what ends up happening, in addition to like on an API where perhaps you have the proportional Q where the Q narrows the more you boost, the aspect that's not often talked about is how that drives or overdrives the output transformer. So as you're starting to drive more voltage into that output transformer and you're driving it in a particular frequency area, it's also that transformer is giving you a warming characteristic and also a compression characteristic. So every electronic component exhibits some resistance. That resistance basically can be defined as compression, and that compression can be frequency dependent. So as you start driving different frequencies into an output transformer, it's going to start pushing back. And so when it starts pushing back, you're going to get certain harmonic distortion characteristics that help to bring out the qualities of them that help them to image more clearly. I'm not sure if there's a better way to describe that. The way that I have always looked at this and working with harmonic distortion plugins and things like that, and the way to approach them is to focus on the imaging. of the actual thing that you're overdriving, like the intensity or solidity of it, because our brains are very used to calculating distortion. Our environment is completely distorted. There's very little that's in our environment, natural environment, that is perfect. Things aren't perfectly flat. They're not perfectly round. There's distortions that go with them. As different varying air pressures everywhere you go, temperatures. Nothing is like this exact modeled, sampled, digital, pixelated kind of existence. So our brain is much more calculated or better calculated to hearing distortion or variances in things. That's how it creates depth perception. And that's where the harmonic distortion characteristics help to bring that out. It makes it easier for you to listen to what's going on. It's a great thing. Like, these are two amazing tools to have in the construct of working inside a DAW, where even if things are, particularly if they're entirely generated inside the box, or even if they're recorded outside the box, but you're just going through the A to D conversion stage, then having these in there will help to bring some analog body depth, warmth, and imaging capability. So I want you to focus on that in particular as we're going to this. So let's just see. Let's see if I can. Actually, what I'm going to do here, I apologize for this. I'm just going to bring that down, and then actually I'm going to bring my output gain up over here so that we can hear it. This is just not any gain reduction going on here. This is just setting an output volume for what we're listening to. All right, so what we have is a bass here, and now what I have is this transformer in. I'm going to start with the version A. What we have is a simple intensity control, which is how much we're driving the transformer. We have a phase inversion. Okay, so that's just a simple 180-degree phase inversion. And then what we have here is a 20 dB pad. So this is, I'll explain what this is all about. So if I drive this up, so notice how the tone shifts, and you can hear it actually sweeping up the harmonic spectrum as you start to drive it more, and it goes higher. If I switch this 20 dB pad in now, what happens? What it allows me to do is to kind of get to the lower end of that spectrum on the distortion side. So this may be something that's a little bit more musical, where I'm not necessarily looking to overdrive something, but what I want to do is I want to find a tonal center or a tonal character where I'm driving that harmonic distortion that sort of fits within the track. So let's just listen here in context of the rest of the mix. Maybe I'll take the guitars out so you can hear it. So as I shift this up and down, I'm actually shifting sort of the tonal center of the bass a little bit, and that helps it to cut through. This is especially powerful for helping it to cut through on smaller speakers, because as you start to shift it up that spectrum, it starts to come in a little bit more of an audible range, or it creates a ripple that comes through, or will make it come through like on smaller speakers for like a laptop or a tablet or something along those lines. Now let's just kind of go over here to the Neve one, and it'll have a different distinctive character to it. So maybe I'll start with it soloed up, so I have that perspective like I did before. Oh, this is with the pad in. So let me go back and so we get the full distortion. So you can hear a similar thing, but it definitely is a different character. Like on the API, you could hear like it just like almost sweeping up, like that just ripples up. This is like a little bit more even tempered until you get to a higher level. So now let's go with the pad in. So you could hear right in there how it shifts. And starts to sweep up a little bit higher. So it almost acts like an equalization circuit. Now, what ends up happening with this, which is kind of cool, is that when you start to sweep up that harmonic realm, it'll sound as if the low end sort of disappears. And the reason is that there's sort of the way that audio, especially on basses and things like that, work is that there's kind of like a tilt, almost like a seesaw type of thing. There's usually like a fulcrum point somewhere in the middle there, so that if you push a note that's closer to the transient energy where the finger is striking or the pick is striking the string, and then you have the body or the sustain of it, which is going to be more resonant low end energy or low mid energy, then as you tilt the area towards one, it's going to make the other side dip a little bit by comparison, because there's a balance between the two. So as you shift it lower, it's going to pull a little bit more away from that top and shift the other end. So it's not like just raise one area. It's more of like a tilting type of thing. And if you listen to it from that perspective, then you can really balance something out well with this. So if we end up with this, let's compare this, the API now in perspective. Or let's see if I can balance this one out first. So it's almost the same amount of drive here. I want to hear this with the guitars because they have a different character. There's a little bit. This has a little bit more body on the low end than the API does on this particular case. In the context of the guitars, you can see how the API really, really opens up the sound a lot more. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this over here to the guitar stem here for a second, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work with the guitars here for a second and see if I can get this to kind of balance it off or create a counterbalance with this. There's obviously also a gain thing here. And all the way along, there is definitely a gain thing. So when you bypass, there is a loss of gain. And so part of that drive is also like a compression characteristic with a distortion that kind of goes in. So let's blend these two together and let's see if this kind of works together. So if you just notice on those two guys, just see if I can bypass them both. Even given the volume change, you can hear like a depth separation difference. One other way I can approach this is to take this and actually, move this. Hold on, I just gotta work on. Sorry, I'm just trying to move one plugin here, and I can't get them both. Oh, I understand why. Sorry, I think I have them both open and not closing the other. So, so let's have a listen now. I'm just going to put this on the drums with the bass mixed together in a stem. So the loss in volume will be consistent. So what you get in there is like a real depth perception, like the imaging really, focuses, like you're able to more clearly see what it is that you're listening to. And when you use harmonic distortion plugins like this, that's kind of the vibe and the thing that that you want to be going after when you work on something like this. So I really dig these. This is more of a recent get for me. And I've been starting to play with them. The more I play with them, the more that I like them. They're just real simple. They're very straightforward. So it doesn't get into like a sophisticated thing with presets and all that sort of stuff. And they just kick ass. They sound really good. So that's the plugin of the week. Kush Audio, Ωmega Transformer, Model A and Model N, which are modelings of the API output transformer and a Neve transformer.